So hello everyone and welcome to this video in which we are going to be looking at the questions and answers of a reading comprehension exercise from CAT 2023 slot 2. This is a passage on fast fashion. In a previous video, I have discussed what is it that we're supposed to understand from this passage after finishing reading it. So in this video, I'm going to be directly getting down to the questions. Okay. So let's look at the first question. Question number 1 says the central idea of the passage would be undermined if. So which of these options will undermine, which means which will weaken whatever the author is trying to say? And the author is trying to say about multiple things. First, the author is trying to tell us the problems with fast fashion. Then the author is telling us that buying second-hand garments is the solution to the problem, but not just any second-hand garments. We need to be able to buy luxury, really good quality second-hand garments. And the problem is that really good quality and luxury second-hand garments are not available. So what needs to be done in order to make it more available? So what do we need to do is we need to make luxury brands capable of disseminating those kind of really good quality garments across the world, which does not happen at this point of time because they don't want people to buy those garments very easily. We need to make sure that they have got some kind of incentive apart from sustainability in order to take part in this kind of second-hand consignment selling, and which means that we have to make their business more profitable. Only then they will not focus upon their brand and they will focus more upon selling the garments in second-hand stores. So these are the points. These are the arguments that the author has placed inside the argument or inside the passage. So let's look at the options. Let's start with option A. Option A says Primark and Boohoo recycle their clothes for vintage stores. So the problem is that Primark and Boohoo, although they are fast fashion brands, but they are just a narrow part of the problem. They are not the entire fast fashion industry. So if only they recycle the clothes, it's not still going to solve the problem of the fast fashion industry entirely. So A cannot be the correct answer. B says customers bought all their clothes online. Whether you buy online or offline does not matter. If you are going to buy new clothes from fast fashion brands, that is a problem. So this actually does not undermine the argument of the author. This only says that the problem will still exist. C says second-hand stores sold only high-quality clothes. If they did, then that would be great. That would actually undermine the problem stated by the author. So maybe C is the answer. D says clothes were not thrown and burnt in landfills. Now, let's say that if clothes were not thrown and were not burnt in landfills, still the author has actually given us some kind of problems that clothes still they cause. When we are washing clothes of lesser quality, we do keep on adding microfibers and microplastics to the environment. And there are so many other problems apart from just being thrown or burnt in landfills that clothes actually cause. So this might seem like the correct answer, but this does not undermine any major point of the author. This still does not tell us that clothes are not going to cause any kind of sustainability issues. That's why D is not the correct answer. Only possible answer is C. That if all second-hand stores sold only high-quality clothes, then people can go there and buy second-hand clothes, and they don't have to incentivize luxury brands in order for them to sell the clothes at a cheaper rate or at a more profitable rate. We don't have to convince them to take part in this entire sustainability initiative. That's why C is the only option that will undermine the argument of the author. I feel that this particular question is easy. A and B should be easily eliminated. And when you compare C and D, it's very easy to actually prove D wrong. It's not easy to prove C wrong. Although I know critical reasoning questions sometimes can be a bit confusing. But if you understand the point that the author is trying to make, and the last two paragraphs are all about incentivizing luxury brands to help them sell their clothes at second-hand stores. So C directly solves the problem, and then the author's entire argument and idea is not required. That's why C will be the correct answer. Question number 2. 2 says act of thrifting as described in the passage can be considered ironic if. Now we need to know the meaning of this term ironic. Something is said to be ironic when whatever you are expecting out of it, the opposite of it is true. So something is written and something is happening, and you expect it to have a particular outcome, but the opposite of it happens. Then it is ironic in nature. Let's say that you're prepared really hard for the CAT paper, and then you end up getting a 42 percentile. Then the result is ironic. It is opposite of the amount of effort that you actually put into your preparation. So like that, the act of thrifting is considered ironic because. So what is thrifting? Thrifting is basically going to thrift stores and consignment stores according to the passage and buying second-hand clothes. And the author is advocating for this because the author is saying that this is going to improve sustainability. It's going to cause lesser problems to the environment. So the act of thrifting as described in the passage can be considered ironic because it has created environmental problems. Maybe I'll hold on to option A because after buying clothes from thrifting stores. If people buy low quality garments, then it does create environmental problems, because if we are continuously washing low quality garments, and that is adding to the amount of waste in the environment. So A can be the answer. I'll hold on to A. B says it's an anti-consumerist attitude. Now see, consumerism means basically when people base their identity on what they consume. And that's why people want to consume more and more, whether they need it or not. It becomes a necessity that I just keep on consuming, whether it be food, whether it be clothes, whether it be luxury goods, cars. If every year I dispose of my car and I buy a new one, then that is a consumerist attitude. So yes, thrifting is anti-consumerist attitude. It is. But that does not make it ironic. It's not the opposite of what you would expect thrifting to do. So B cannot be the answer. C says it's not cost effective for retailers. This can be a sense of irony, because thrift, the word thrift or thrifty means someone who is very careful with their money, who is not spending too much. Now, a person who's not spending too much is wanting to accumulate more money. But if it is not cost effective, then that means that accumulating more money is not helping people accumulate more money. So C also can denote a sense of irony. So C also I'll hold on to. And D says offers luxury clothing at cut rate prices. That is what thrifting is. That's what thrifting is supposed to do. That's not irony. That is expected. So B and D I should eliminate as the correct answer. Answer is either A or C. Now, among A and C, reading the question carefully will actually help us figure out which is the more correct answer. And the question says, which of these is ironic when we consider act of thrifting as described in the passage? Now, C is ironic if we consider the meaning of the word thrift. But the act of thrifting is going and buying garments, second-hand garments from consignment stores. That is what is the act of thrifting. So we are buying second-hand clothes. Why? To improve sustainability. That is what the act of thrifting is intended towards. So the act of thrifting is ironic because of A, because it is done for sustainability, but actually causes more harm to the environment. So A is the irony. C would have been the answer if the question was that which of these makes the term thrifting, the meaning of the term thrifting ironic. So meaning of the term thrifting can be thought of as ironic if it is not cost effective for retailers. So slightly difficult question, because it requires us to know the meaning of the word ironic, to know the meaning of the word thrifting, and to eliminate options. So I would say moderate. I would still not say moderately difficult. I would not say that it's very, very like also on the tougher side of moderate. I would say easy to moderately difficult. That's what I would categorize this particular question as. Let's look at question 3. 3 says, based on the passage, we can infer that the opposite of fast fashion, slow fashion, would most likely refer to clothes that. So in the passage, when the author is talking about fast fashion, the author is talking about buying new clothes, not buying second-hand goods, which are continuously thrown, continuously discarded, which fill landfills, that people burn, that causes environmental harm. So slow fashion will be the opposite of this. Slow fashion will be something that people don't buy again and again, that does not get discarded very soon, that is not going to cause a lot of harm to the environment. That's what common sense dictates. So let's look at the options and let's see which can be the correct answer. A says do not shed microfibers, maybe because that's what fast fashion clothes actually do. B says are of high quality and long lasting, probably because it is the opposite of fast fashion also. So B can also be the answer. C says are sold by genuine vintage stores. Not necessarily, because genuine vintage stores can sell luxury goods or fast fashion goods also. So vintage stores sell both. So C I can actually eliminate. Do not bleed toxins and dyes. That's what fast fashion garments do. That is how they cause environmental harm. So D can also be the answer. Now of A, B and D, which will be more correct? Now see, A and D are narrow parts of fast fashion. So some fast fashion garments shed microfibers. Some bleed toxins and dyes. But that's not the main problem. The main problem is that people continuously discard them and keep on buying new clothes. So we are creating more and more waste. And the waste is going to make us die. That is what the author is saying. So a better capture of the opposite of fast fashion is an option B, because it is more all-encompassing. A and D are narrow versions of the opposite of what fast fashion garments do, of what some fast fashion garments do. But B is the opposite of the essence of what fast fashion is all about, and that's why B is the correct answer. I feel if you compare A, B, and D, it's easy to incline towards B. It's easy to figure out that A and D will be less correct. So that's why I will put question number 3 also in the category of easy questions. And last question says, according to the author, companies like Thread UP have not caught on in the UK for all of the following reasons except. Let's go back to the passage, and the last paragraph is where thread UP has been mentioned. So first, the author is saying luxury brands would rather not circulate their latest season stock around the globe at a cheaper price, to be sold at a cheaper price. So they will not circulate their garments around the globe to be sold at a cheaper price. That's just one problem, right? Why thread UP kind of companies might not succeed. That's the first reason that the author has given us. Second reason that the author gives us is there will always be a market for consignment, but there is also a whole generation of people who have been taught that only buying new products is the norm. So there's a problem. That's an entire generation of customers who will, by nature, buy say new garments because they have not been taught to buy second-hand luxury goods. So that is a second problem why companies like thread UP might not succeed. And last problem is present in the last line of the passage. High-end retailers would rather put brand before sustainability because luxury brands will put their brand value over sustainability initiatives. So that's why it's very difficult to buy luxury goods in second-hand stores like thread UP. So these are the three reasons. So I will look for the options in which these three reasons are present, and that will not be the correct answer. So recycling is not financially attractive for luxury brands. Yes, that is what the first line says, that it is, they don't want to sell goods at cheap price. So A is, I would say, a reason given by the author. B says luxury brands do not like their products to be devalued. Yes, that is also being given inside the passage. So B is not the correct answer. C says the British don't buy second-hand clothing. So that there is an argument for this. It's that there is a generation of people who have been taught to not buy second-hand clothing and they only buy new garments. So C also looks like it's been a reason which has been given. But I'll hold on to C. I'll tell you why. D says luxury brands want to maintain their brand image. That is also directly given inside the passage about brand image. Now, why have I held on to C? Because C is making a blanket statement. The passage is saying there's only a generation of people who don't buy second-hand clothing, but C says the British in general don't buy second-hand clothing, and that has been negated in the first part of the sentence, which says there will always be a market for consignment. This means that there are some people, at least some people, who are creating a market for consignment, for second-hand goods. That's why to say that British people in general, the British in general, don't buy second-hand clothing will be wrong. And that's why this is the correct answer, because this is not one of the reasons given by the author for the fact that companies like thread UP will not be successful in UK. So again, I feel that if you go back to the passage and check what's been written, it's easy to figure out that A, B, and D are wrong and C is correct. So I will put this also in the easy category. I felt that in this paper, in CAT 2023 slot 2, this was the easiest exercise. I feel that anyone who's prepared for this examination seriously can get and should get 3 out of 4 correct. If you are banking on the VARC section as your strength, then this is an exercise where you can get 100% accuracy. 4 out of 4 correct is absolutely possible for people who are considering the VARC section to be their strength. Right? So that's all for this video. Thank you. Take care.